Coming up this morning on the Dattitude podcast, a little over 10 months ago on the first episode of our rebranded show, WWL Radio analyst Mike Detillier used a phrase we have repeated more than any other since then. He said the New Orleans Saints are in, quote, football purgatory. Here we are finishing the most dreadful, hopeless season in a quarter century, and if it's possible, the Saints have actually dipped their toe in the waters of football hell. So are we bringing Mike back to ask if it's as bad as I think it is? And how do they get back to where they are? How did they get back to where they were just 4 years ago before Drew Brees left and 3 years ago when Sean Payton departed? We'll bring Mike in to talk to him in about half an hour. I'll open with my monologue and hear from you. So let's cue the music and start this fun show.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, Dattitude family? Hope you are bundled up wherever you are this morning. As you can see, I'm bundled up in my own office. It's because I forgot to turn on the heater last night in the studio. When I walked in this morning, it was 52 degrees in here. So I turned it on, but it's still, I don't know, 60-something. Cue Uncle Big Nick making fun of me because it's cold. It is what it is. Look, before we get started, it seems we've been doing this a lot lately. I want to say a little prayer, a shout out for the people of Los Angeles this morning. If you don't watch the news or you haven't in the last 24 hours, 4 fires, 2 of them massive, sprung up yesterday. And because of hurricane force gusts, the fire department hasn't really been able to do much with them. There have been already 2 fatalities and several injured as officials are hoping they can get out there and work to begin containment ASAP. They have zero containment. I was watching it this morning. They were talking. They were talking to, I think, the Los Angeles Fire Department chief, and while they were talking to her, building literally was on fire and literally crumbled while they were talking to it. It's just brutal. It's our heart goes out to them. Again, we've been doing that a lot lately. So prayers go out to them. All right. We're going to move on and get on with the show. This is Dattitude, episode number 329, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Wednesday, January the 8th, 2024. We've already finished our first week. It's 2025. See what happens? You put it on there on the script. I'm Ron Burgundy. I'm going to read it. I typed in 2024. I read 2024. It's Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. If you don't know this by now, I'm your host, Jim Derry, 34 plus years in the New Orleans sports media scene, all here at the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. I thank you for being a part of the Dattitude family. We are going to have Mike Detillier on the show this morning, coming on about 11:20, 11:25. He's got some things going on this morning, so he's going to pop in. And I say pop in, but every time Mike comes on, it's a long show, okay? Because I ain't cutting off New Orleans sports royalty, okay, pal? Whatever he wants to say, we're going to have him say it. And you know, one thing about Mike is he knows what's going on. Is he and Jeff Duncan, I think, have the closest ears to the ground in this city of anything that goes on. And there's a reason why more people watch and listen to this show when those two guys come on. So I am happy to have Mike on again, coming up around 11:20, 11:25 or so. So let's get to some of the comments before we start here. Going this morning. Yeah, you be in. I knew he was going to say something about the weather. And again, I haven't got to it yet, but I'm sure he'll make fun of me. That's Callie, who dat? Gary, good morning. Well, who else we got? Charles Mangus is here. Good cold morning. Definitely have to get a hip. Oh, I'm sorry to hear you got to have hip replacement. We're thinking about you, man. Thinking about you. I'll tell you, it's. My dad had to have 2 of those. And I know it's a rough thing to go through. So we're thinking about you, Charles. Good morning, Randall. Stirring the pot. Dan Campbell might be the man, but he's an awful coach. He could be the man. Save for life. Who dat? Hakeem Batiste is here. Big dog. Cali. Yes, it's really bad. Los Angeles you're talking about. Yep. Let's see what else we got. Good morning, Kyle Sherman. It is definitely SoCal's version of Katrina. I mean, it looks like a disaster movie. It really does. It's, if you haven't seen the news, I'm telling you, I'm not trying to bring anybody down this morning, but you really should go check it out. It's bad, Kyle. The city of Manhattan Beach is okay. I have a couple other friends who live in Southern California. I need to check on them, as a matter of fact. Good friend of mine, Jimmy Radcliffe, who he typed a message on here a week or two ago, was watching us. And he used to be the head of officials for the Louisiana High School Football Association. And I need to check up on him. He lives in Los Angeles now. Hakeem says he's loving the Falcons' failure. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, sometimes I'm wrong, and I just root for not being wrong. Sometimes, not in this case. I was so glad I was wrong with the Falcons winning the NFC South. No doubt about it. Gabe says, breaking news. Multiple NFL teams, most notably the Raiders, have inquired about Bill Belichick. Will the Saints do that? I hope not. Look, I'll say it again and again and again and again, and people don't necessarily agree with me. They think it's just because of Tom Brady. I think Bill Belichick is the greatest coach in the history of the National Football League, bar none. But I don't want a 72-year-old dude coming in, or however old he is, running this team. Anyway, Gabe Avila, good morning. What do I think about the Carr statement and not taking a pay cut? Why should he take a pay cut? Did anyone have a problem with Drew Brees not taking a pay cut? Because Drew Brees not only refused to not take a pay cut, he was basically threatening to sit out if you didn't get the money he deserved. Nobody had a problem with that. So no, I don't have a problem with it. Today, in the market in the world that we live in, you got to do what's best for you. Okay? We've said this about college players and the NIL and how NIL has basically screwed up college football. And in a lot of ways it has. But you can't blame the players for it. Same goes in the NFL. You can't blame players for looking out for number one. And then just lost to people that want to hear that. I'm not joking. Just lost a third of my audience. They do not want to hear me taking up for Derek Carr. I would have said this about Derek Carr. I'd say it about Spencer Rattler if he was in the same boat. I'd say it about anybody. If you don't want him at that salary, then cut him and eat the dead cap. I don't suggest you do that because you're going to go 2-15 next year. If you do, probably. But if you have to, you have to. Kyle Sherman says Carr is properly compensated. Look, we talked about this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We're talking about a list of where players are, quarterbacks are in salary compensation. And I don't know if it's exactly the same as it was when we talked about it last. I can't imagine it would change much now because there hasn't been much that's changed. But it was within the past month we talked about this. Derek Carr, among quarterback salaries, is 17th in the NFL. 17th. You can't tell me we've been through this before. I already told you I think Derek Carr's at the bare minimum in the top 12. Okay? But if you don't agree with me, you're just that absolute hater who can't see the truth if you don't think Derek Carr is not at least in the top 17. You're crazy loon ball. Have you watched what has happened when he wasn't playing? Pretty simple. So Kyle Sherman is correct. He is properly compensated. His salary, quarterback salaries are out of control. It's not Derek Carr's fault. Gabe says he's earned the money. He has. He has earned the money. Again, you might not like it. I get it that you don't like it. I get it that you don't like quarterback salaries cost that much. Even Randall agrees. He doesn't blame Derek Carr for not taking a pay cut. Blame Mickey Loomis for extending him last year. He didn't extend him, Randall. He didn't extend him. That's not what he did. He restructured his contract so the Saints could fit in players from last year. That's what he did. The same thing they did with Drew Brees probably a dozen times. I'm not comparing Derek Carr's ability to Drew Brees' ability, but Derek Carr was never the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Drew Brees was for a short period of time, and I think was almost always in the top 5. As well he should have been, probably. Now, there were times when I said that Drew Brees, if he wanted this team to be better back in the day, I'm going to be transparent and tell you what I said. I feel differently now than I felt 10 years ago. Drew Brees was taking up a quarter at one point, and I'm not exaggerating. You can go back and look at this. At one point in time, Drew Brees took up 1/4 of the Saints salary cap. Can't do that. You can't be successful if you do that. Derek Carr's nowhere near that. Tom and Wendy Burris, personally, that attitude, you'd sit him next year. You'd sit him next year for what? Wanting his pay? If you went to work today, okay? If you went to work, let's just say you make, I'm going to make up a number. Let's say you make $100,000, okay? You go to work today, and your boss says, things are tough around here. Would you take $70,000 instead because things are tough around here? If you say you would do it, I'm going to say my ass you do it. You're full of it. Shouldn't be any different in the NFL. It's no different in the NFL. Is Randall coming around? Randall, Saints aren't winning anything without Derek Carr. Who is it? Who hacked your account, dude? What is going on, man? You're like realistic and sensical today. He also says, where is it? Whoop, wrong one. Had no problem with Brees making that much money because we're actually contending for a championship with Brees. No, I get it. I'm just saying at the time when he was making a quarter of the Saints salary cap, it's about the time the Saints were going 7-9 for 3 years in a row. It wasn't a coincidence. Brian says, good day, Nola. Get your snacks ready as you settle in. Circus show called Head Coach Search. By the way, be prepared to be disappointed with the choice. Look, here's my thing on the coaching search. We're going to get to it right now. We're going to talk about the coaching search. Let's move on to that because we're going to spend a lot of time with Mike. Again, Mike Detillier coming on the show in about 7-10 minutes. In fact, before we get to any more of this, let me tell you about our friends at Evangeline Securities. There's no press conference that's scheduled over there anytime soon because unlike your favorite football team, they are a well-oiled machine. They don't need to worry about salary caps and all that mess. They're a company that can help you decide if the right time to sell your family-run or privately held business, and just as importantly, they can figure out what that business is worth. They're well under the cap, buddy. They can help you get to where you want to be financially as well. Indeed, it might be time to reach out to Evangeline's founding and managing partners, Nick Braden and Ron Hemel. They'll start by scheduling a complimentary valuation from their offices either on Porter Street or in Lafayette. And from there, you will be well informed to begin to make the decision on if you want to proceed. If you do, they're going to be right there with you all along the way. What happens next? We'll fill you in more right after Mike says bye-bye to us. In the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. If you haven't noticed, and you're new to the show, you can be a part of the show by typing in your comment on YouTube or Facebook. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our ever-growing Dattitude YouTube page. And you can see all the things that we're going on. We're doing shorts again. I'm trying to get back with the shorts. Although some people didn't like my last short because there's actually somebody who said my short yesterday was about, do the Saints need to draft an O-lineman first in the draft? And if you watch the show more than 3 times, you know that I think that they absolutely need to draft an O-lineman first. Some guy says I was crazy. I'm crazy. They spent 4 first-round picks in the last however many years. So what? Their offensive line sucks, dude. Really? It's a no-brainer. Offensive line or bust. You can also get in touch with me on X at Jim Derry Jr. or via email, jderry@theadvocate.com. Marvin Ross wants to cut Carr in the offseason. Here's what happens if you cut Carr in the offseason. Okay? You cut Carr in the offseason, you don't save that much money. He's got, I think, a $27 million dead cap hit. Okay? You can't go sign another free agent quarterback because you don't have any money. So then you're stuck with whatever scrap you can pick up off the free agent wire that you can afford, which is almost nothing, or you're stuck with the rat. And if you think that this year, or at least the last half of this year, was miserable, you ain't seen nothing yet. There is no coach that's going to come in here if you, and I mean none. There is no coach that's going to want to come in here if you say, oh, by the way, we're going to cut Carr in a month or two or whatever the date is. I mean, it makes zero, and I mean 0.0 sense to cut Derek Carr, unless you want to go 2-15. And again, you think trying to get a coach now is tough? No. That ain't nothing. That ain't nothing. I know you never hated Carr, Randall, by the way. And Nick, you're right. I think no matter who they hire, the fans probably won't be happy. I'm just saying you can't. And again, I'm going to ask Mike what he thinks in just a minute. But you even if you don't like Derek Carr, it's fine. It doesn't matter whether you like him or not. There's nothing you can do right now where you are. Cutting Derek Carr is not going to, quote, get you out of football purgatory. Cutting Derek Carr is going to leave you again with someone off the scrap heap that's willing to take $8 or $10 million. Or it's going to leave you with Spencer Rattler, 0-6. In his 6 starts, in case you forgot, in his 6 starts, not only did he go 0-6, but the Saints scored 6 points in the second half of those 6 games. Combined, not 6 points per game. 6 points total in 6 games in the second half. Jake Hayner had 1 drive in the second half. You know how many points he scored? 7. I'm not saying Jake Hayner is better than Spencer Rattler. I'm just saying they can't go with either one of those guys. Douglas, good morning. It is definitely cold. I'll tell you. I had to put on the jacket here in the office. It's in the studio. It is cold. All right, let's get to it. Your man, y'all didn't want to hear from me today. Y'all can hear from me any day. Let's go get to the man, the myth, the legend. Mike Detillier, how are you, Michael?
I'm doing great, Jim. Thank you.
Good morning, and glad to have you here. We got a lot of people that want to hear from you this morning, so we're gonna get right to it. And again, I've said it this morning. I've said it multiple times. I've talked about it with you on your show, and you used the quote when we quote unquote first show of the rebranding of this podcast when we kind of merged 3 shows into one on March 1st of 2024. And you used the quote, the Saints are in football purgatory. Well, I dare to say they've dipped their toe in the waters of football hell. And so where do you think this team is right now? And do you see a light somewhere at the end of some tunnel somewhere?
One, they would have to show me some change in philosophy on how they want to build this team. My thing is, it's all about personnel. You can bring in the greatest coach in the world. My thing about it is, coaching does matter. But you know who wins for you? Players. They don't have enough. And, they can keep looking at this and saying, we are a little bit away from, being a really good team. That's not the issue. You're far away. You're not close at this point. You don't have a star quarterback. You got troubles along both the offensive, defensive lines. You did catch really some bad luck injury-wise at wide receiver, but I still think you need one more guy there.
At least, yeah.
The secondary, which we thought was a strength at corner now, isn't maybe quite the same anymore. And you need help at safety. And you've got to know the team. You got to know the team today. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. So, Jim, when I look at this, and I've said this now for the past 3 weeks, The blueprint on how to do this was done by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jason Light went through the same thing a couple years back. The Bucs had never been a team to kick the can down the road.
Right.
But Jason made the decision, along with the Glazer family, that, you know what? We can get Brady. But if we get him, we also have to put other pieces around him to try to get us really competitive and maybe win a Super Bowl. So what did they do? They traded for Rob Gronkowski. They signed Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul. Had a lot of older guys, and they kicked the can for the first time in the salary cap sort of era. They kicked it. And then it worked in 2020. They didn't win the division, but they won when it counted, playoff time against the Saints, and then go to Green Bay and win there, and then beat the Chiefs. Okay, got that on the resume, baby. They beat Mahomes and the Chiefs. They win a Super Bowl.
But how did they continue after, though, Mike? They've now, and Baker Mayfield looks like you wanted him to look when he first got drafted in the NFL and didn't necessarily look at Cleveland, and now he's looking like the guy you thought he would 6, 7, 8 years later.
The thing with it is, 2 years later, you had Brady, you made the playoffs, but you had a lot of dead cap money.
Right.
But what they hit, Jim, out of the last 3 years, only one draft choice is not on the roster today. They're a young team, and they hit gold. They got Baker Mayfield, who's a good starting quarterback in the NFL. He's not an elite player, but he's good. And they got him at a cheap price. Not only when they signed him, but today. Look at what quarterbacks are going for now. Look what Baker Mayfield is getting with the Bucs. So, man, you got to give Jason a lot of credit here. He was smart enough to figure it out that, you know what? We're going to take our lumps salary cap wise, but we're going to use the draft. He put a lot of good machinery around him to pick the right players. 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen came through the draft. Only one free agent. You think about their defense, they've tried to retool that. I think of their starting 7 up front, 6 are draft choices.
Same thing in Minnesota, right, Mike?
And so look at how that team is. You don't have to draw up the game plan. It's been drawn up for you. Follow the exact same thing. Because you got a salary cap situation now that, man, it's going to be difficult. And you got to one day say, I got to pay the credit card.
Right.
I got to pay the credit card. And
but
that's go with young players.
It also goes to show, Mike, that this team has failed consistently in the draft. And I don't want to just blame it on Mickey. I'm sure there's a whole team of guys, and I'm not just blaming it on Mickey, but how do you get to this point where you have had so many poor drafts that it's coming back? That's why this team was 5-12, in my opinion. You talk about Tampa Bay. I brought up Minnesota. The one thing that these teams have done well, they got lucky with their quarterback choices and free agency. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, you talk about how they drafted well. They've been able to overcome other deficiencies because of the draft. The Saints have not been able to do that.
Yeah, and you're not going to hit on every pick, okay? That's not being realistic. But you can't keep whiffing on first and second round picks. I mean, you got Isaiah Foskey. He's a special teams player. Peyton Turner, he's an occasional player.
Right.
Okay, you were going to redo your inside guys at defensive tackle. Okay, I do know one thing. Brian Brzee can rush the quarterback.
Absolutely.
But
they got that one right, I think.
But as I told you, he's going to struggle the first couple years
playing
the run. How he's built, you got to play lower. And, man, Pete Jenkins and I, we went through all that film, and he was like, Mike, I had him at Clemson. Let me tell you what I think he can do. He's athletic, and I agree with you. He can rush the quarterback, yes. But I had defensive tackles like him. You know, and he said, you always have that comment about like a big, tall cowboy. You ride high in the saddle. You ride high in the saddle at defensive tackle. You know what those guards do and centers do? Get under your pads, move your. And he's still learning how to play lower. Colin Saunders, Shepard, they've been disappointments.
Yeah,
they haven't hit on defensive tackle. You got lucky with Carl Granderson, and I do give the scouting department a lot of credit there to find that guy as a free agent. That's how you got him
right
at defensive end. But now you've got an aging team with a Cam Jordan who's got like a lifetime contract with this team, and he still wants to play. You may have to say, you know what, man, we love you, and you on our Mount Rushmore. You're on our Mount Rushmore. But you know what? We're going to give you your release, and if you want to play somewhere else, we'll give you that opportunity.
I don't think they have the oomph to do that, Mike. I just don't think they do. I agree with you, and it's sad, but I just don't think they're going to do it.
Tyron, I mean, goes down as one of the greatest LSU players of all time.
No doubt.
When you think about those early years with the Cardinals, he was buried on a bad team, goes to Kansas City, played great there. He had his moments here, certainly with the Saints, but you can see his best days are done. DeMario, I think, will leave on his own terms.
Yeah, I agree.
He's told us
he's only got one more year left on his contract.
Yeah, and he's told us that every year that, you know, I'm going to know when it's time for me to walk. And I'll be honest with you, DeMario Davis ain't the problem on defense.
No, and the last few games of the season, I thought he was kind of missing for a little bit. But I thought towards the end of the season, I thought especially in the last game, I thought in the Tampa game last Sunday, I thought he was phenomenal, and really the game before that as well. So he really kind of showed up again. And I think with one more year on his contract, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't play it out.
Yeah, if he wants to, if he wants to. This goes back. Doug Muto and I were talking about this. And he reminded me of it. He said, Mike, I remember you coming on. And I interviewed Jimmy Taylor, former great with the Packers. And he goes on Mount Rushmore, the NFL.
What is he, 85 years old?
No, he passed away a few years
back. Oh, he
back.
did? I'm going to say, yeah, okay.
And so I would say a few months before he passed away, he came on the show. He had heard me on different channels. And, man, he said, I love listening to you. I said, well, hell, come on the show with me. He was like, great. So he talked about that final year in Green Bay and that 1 year with the Saints. And he was like, you know, God tricked me. I was in great shape those 2 years, and I could occasionally do what I had done in the early 60s. But he said, you know what? God tricked me because he didn't let me do it like I could before. Right. And he said, man, every once in a while, I could make that great run, or I could get away from that defender. And then sometimes a 180-pound quarterback pulls me down. Like he said, back in 61, 62, he'd have never done that to me. He said, I'd have run over him. And, you know, I would describe Jimmy's play for people who hadn't seen him. He was a symphony of violence. He was the most violent runner of the 60s. And I mean, man, you caught it when you played Taylor. But he said, you know, that last year with Green Bay, I wasn't the same. And I wasn't the same with the Saints. I got paid. And I knew the second year in preseason, it's time for me to walk. But he said, you know, God gave me all that talent, but he also sort of fooled me because I didn't pick up the signs that I couldn't do it like I would have in the past. And he said, then all of a sudden, he gave me a stark reality. You can't. You have to move on. And I think that's the thing with a lot of older players today.
Is that where Taysom Hill may be when he tries to come back, you think?
We'll see. We'll see with Taysom because, you know, you and I have talked about this before. I've seen this with players in evaluating college guys. They have a history of injuries. That never really sort of gets away from you.
Right.
You know, but I think sometimes it's the style of play of Taysom. He's pedal to the metal every play. He hits the accelerator. And so he's going to take a lot of shots. Man, you take a look at him. We did a couple of events together. Man, he's still, bruised all over his arms, hands, everything. And this is days after the game. He's really purpled up, so to speak. So he's another guy you're going to have to make that choice. And I know there's a guy in Denver that would take him off your hands.
Yeah, I'm sure sure there is. Well, I want to move on. There's some people in the comments and kind of talking about who the next Saints coach might be and asking. But before we get to who it might be, the question a lot of people have, and I got to be honest. I'm starting to have it too. I never really had it until recently, but does it make sense? And look, Mickey's going to make up his mind and decide what he wants to do. I got a feeling he's not going anywhere. He's not doing anything, and it's up to him if he wants to do it or not. But does it make sense to go through a whole rebuilding process and picking another coach with Mickey Loomis, who's inching up on 70 years old?
Well, I've always told you Mickey's going to leave on his terms.
No doubt about it.
Man, we get it every
you.
day. And, people, I don't know if they don't want to hear it or don't want to believe it. And they got sports writers here that, he's not a protected guy. Come on. Tom Benson gave him that power.
Right.
And Gail Benson's going to continue to do that. And Mickey has always sort of made the comment, I may wake up one morning and decide I'm going to walk away. But that day isn't today. So you can like it or dislike it.
That's
and
right.
You can comment on it. But I'm telling you, he's going to make that choice. He's going to do it. It's not going to be you, me, callers, people that you meet on the street. I hear that all the time also. The exact same thing.
Is there any chance, Mike, that you think, and here's one caveat, and I think this is one possibility, that he goes in, or it may have already happened, whatever, is that he goes in and Misc says, you know what, Mickey, we want some other voices in, maybe someone inside the organization already, and we say, but look, we'll leave you with the general manager title, but we're going to have more people involved in discussions. Is there any chance that maybe he kind of takes a back seat a little bit without anyone knowing about it?
Yeah, I think your last comment is correct. We'll never know about it. We'll never know about it. And, for him to reach out to Randy Mueller to come in as a
right.
That sort of told me something. Randy was a regular with us on WWL. And so one day he texted me, hey, Mikey, hey, give me a call. I got something to tell you. And he told me, hey, I can't do it anymore. I'm a consultant, and they had worked together. And it's another voice in the room for him. And Ziegler, former GM with
That's
the
right.
Raiders, he's another voice in the room. So that has already happened, Jim. It's already happened.
And we're just not talking about it. So I really think that, people can get ticked off and they can blame whatever they want on Mickey. But I think it's a lot more than Mickey that's talking about this right now inside the building.
Yeah. And so I think he has brought in different voices. Now, here's the thing about voices. I've been on a lot of committees in my life. You know what? There's a lot of noise, but it comes down to one cat got to make a decision.
That's true.
Man, I've been in it.
That's true.
Talking, but it comes down to one guy. And who do you trust? And Mickey, at this point, has trusted Jeff Ireland.
Yep.
Okay, for everybody across the board that wants to blame coach, GM, everything else, the one guy who's got a tremendous amount of power in this organization is Jeff Ireland.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's a name we haven't even mentioned.
He's a guy, and you can live off a draft for a little while, but 2017, you can't live off of forever. And look what's happened since. It's been hit and miss, hit and miss, hit and miss. Now, I do give Jeff a little credit here. He was right on Zach Bowen. Saints didn't know how to use him. He was right with Caden Ellis. Didn't know how to use it. That's not on Jeff Ireland or Mickey Loomis. You know what that's on? Your coach. And that's Sean Payton included. Sean had him. Okay, he had Zach Bowen. And
I've asked that question as well, Mike. Why doesn't Sean Payton, like everyone loves Sean Payton, but not everyone, but the vast majority of people love Sean Payton. And I always thought that, there were things that Sean did and he kind of got out before it started being noticed, Yeah,
he felt the kind of warm breeze of the hurricane long before it hit.
There's no doubt about it.
And I get it with him. And sometimes you just need sort of a break. And him and I spoke about this because I retired from another job and I had done that for 28 years. And I was doing also the sports. And it's a lot of wear and tear on you after a period of time. And you got to make a choice. I get him leaving. I really do. And I understand what
I do too. I get it.
But after a year, you know what? You get bored. You get bored as hell. And I was doing a lot of other things. And it got to the point where my wife was, go take what's offered to you because you're miserable here.
I've heard that one before.
And I was like, okay. And I was just jackpot lucky. In 1 week, I got 3 offers. And I never approached anybody about any job. And it came like bang, bang, bang. But that's sort of been my life in a nutshell. It's kind of happened almost like shotgun style for me. But I understand what Sean went through. But he made his personnel mistakes, too, in using people properly. Didn't we see a much better Taysom Hill? You know, now Sean used him a certain way,
right?
But how Kubiak used him before he got hurt.
I agree. I agree. He was definitely more consistent. And that was one thing I always had a problem with Pete Carmichael. Literally the number one problem I had with Pete Carmichael was you would see Taysom Hill go off, and then the next game he'd have like 3 touches. And I never understood that. Okay, I get you're trying to gear towards whatever opponent, but you can't tell me Taysom Hill shouldn't be a major part of the offense, no matter who you're playing. And he would just disappear for some games. And I never understood that with Pete at all.
Yeah, and man, I remember they played that that real cold game in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Look how many touches Taysom Hill had in the first half.
Right.
About 2. I mean, my thing is, so right before Bobby got to do his commentary, he texted me, what the hell's going on?
Where's Taysom?
Dude, I do know he's on the team, but I'm not making the calls, okay?
Right.
And so you were able to come out of that with a victory, but it was a strange game plan by Carmichael of why you didn't use Taysom in that situation more.
Well, Deshaun Watson was the reason why the Saints won that game, but that's a whole different.
Oh, he helped. He helped.
There's no doubt about it.
The thing is, the tight end position, I think, with Kubiak was much more put in the light this year than it was after, say, we went through that run of Shockey, Graham, Ben Watson. And then who the hell's the tight end? Okay, you saw, I think the most improved guy on this team from a year ago, Foster Moreau.
I can't disagree with you.
A lot of people were on Foster about, man, you know, he was a disappointment. Look what he went through medically. A year ago.
Yeah, cancer.
Back on the field is unbelievable. But, man, I don't know if people don't watch football or don't understand it sometimes. But
I think it's the latter.
I think they're looking for expectations that's not there. And a lot of times what we don't know is the medical part, what somebody's going through medically during the season. And I hear it all the time. Guys ain't tough anymore. What? Man, you don't know how tough some of those guys are and what they go through each and every week to get back on the field. I'm not saying the guys in the 60s and 50s and 70s weren't really tough, but they got guys today that are tough.
Foster Moreau could have played back then.
Some of them today make business decisions. You know, they make that business decision. But the one thing you don't want is bad tape. It's the same. The one thing that drives me up the wall is next man up. And you know, I'm going, next man up. The next man up was better than the guy that's playing. Okay, he would have been playing. The next man up, sometimes it's a Mount Everest drop. Okay, that's great for a coach to say. Okay, because he's got to say it in that locker room. And for media to say it and fans to say it, it's not realistic. The other thing, too, is tanking.
Don't get me started on tanking.
Put out bad tape, and I want to have my livelihood as a pro player, and I'm going to tank? Man.
Yeah, don't get me started on tanking.
The other thing, too, is people in their work profession. If I told you, hey, you know what? We're going to have a new boss in a couple months. Don't do nothing for 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, Mike, that brings up a great point because people, fans talk about tanking and I'm sorry. If you're one of these fans listening right now, I'm sorry. Idiot fans who want players to tank and coaches to tank, okay? There is no other way to describe it if that's what you want. Because first of all, even if you wanted that, there is no way that you're going to get 54, 52 players to go along with you, or a coach that's trying to keep his job to go along with. We've seen it in the past. We've seen coaches say, I ain't tanking on purpose. Look at the Chicago Bears winning the other day. They had no business winning a game, kicking a last-second field goal to win. We saw it with Houston a couple years ago. It cost them Bryce Young. Oh, wait, they got C.J. Stroud instead. That worked out okay. So tanking, to me, I've always said this, Mike, you know what losing does for you? It makes you a loser. It doesn't do anything else but make you a loser. So tanking is the most moronic concept on the planet.
You know, my thing is, and maybe because where I grew up, it's all about, hey, you get a fist fight every day. This is about you having some heart and grit and toughness about you to fight through the toughest times. And I never understood the tank part at all.
It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work in this league. Now, are you telling me guys make a business decisions not to play? Yeah, I would say yes. I think there is that element.
Marshawn Lattimore. I'm sorry. Did that come out? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that out loud.
And I think Marshawn made a couple of business.
Yeah, just a few. Just a few.
But and that's nothing against him other than the fact that I think he's the greatest cornerback to ever play for the Saints. And I've seen all of them. Everyone, he is the best. And it's not close.
He's better than Johnny Poe?
Oh, man.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, a lot better. But I think you had to handle Marshawn a certain way. And, you know, I think him and Dennis Allen, and we hear a little bit more about it each day, there's sort of friction with him, not only with Marshawn, but with other guys too. And there is some understanding of why I'm upset with Kendra Miller. Man, I would be upset with him too. Okay? You can't pull up with Kendra Miller. Okay, because I think the main crux with Kendra is he's super talented.
Mm-hmm.
I know it, and the coaches knew it. Really, he didn't get himself ready for the season. And Demario Davis had a great line about, hey, it's about Monday through Friday. It ain't just about Sunday. It's about getting yourself mentally and physically ready for this game. And I think that shot across the bow was aimed right at him. Because he is talented. We've seen him where he's got talent, but he don't help me if he's in the tub.
There's no doubt about that. All right. Mike Detillier here with us on the Dattitude podcast on this Wednesday morning, this very cold Wednesday morning. It's a good morning to remember to put the heater on in your studio before you go out there. I didn't do that, hence I'm wearing a coat in the office this morning. All right. Mike, I want to ask you, I want to switch gears a little bit, talk about maybe who the next Saints coach might be. These odds are from betonline.ag. And so these are just the top 5. There are other names that obviously are being mentioned, but right now, Aaron Glenn and Joe Brady are the overwhelming favorites. One of those two guys, the overwhelming favorites to be the next Saints head coach. But first of all, it's going to be hard to interview either Aaron Glenn or Joe Brady because you can't even talk to them in person until January the 19th. And you can talk to them virtually, but man, 4 of these guys on this list are in the playoffs right now. I mean, that's going to make this process go a little bit longer than probably the Saints would like.
Yeah. Of that list, to me, it's Aaron Glenn. Okay. As a former player, as an assistant coach, and look what he's done as a defensive coordinator. Hey, if I want a game on the resume, I'll put that when that happens Sunday against the Vikings. Look all the cats that are down on that Lions team on defense. Look how well the Lions played. And I think about Amik Robertson, man, and I grew up, in this area where we didn't have a lot of pro players. Now we got a bunch of them now.
Right.
From the River Parish and also the Bayou region. One of them, Amik Robertson. He's all of 5'8". All of 5'8". And up against Justin Jefferson. And I had him on yesterday, Ernest Harvey Jr. We call him Turk. He runs Camp Mula in Houma. First time I ever met Amik, he was training at Camp Mula, and who he was going up against? Justin Jefferson. Man, those guys knew one another. And you talk about talking crap to one another. Man, I heard that the entire time, and to see a Meek, because, I knew how he grew up, how tough he is as a player. He was a widely recruited corner as a junior, tears up his knee. And everybody's like, whoa, I don't want him, And Louisiana Tech sneaks in. And then at the end, because Meek's knee got well, when Coach O got the job at LSU, I told him, hey, babe, recruit a Meek Robertson. He's like, Mike, he's 5'8". I said, I don't give a damn if he's 5'6". He can play. Now, LSU got in late and they offered. So did Texas and Missouri. But I think Meek felt, you know what, man, Tech's been here throughout our process. I'm going to go with the gal that, I brought to the dance. And to see him play, and he is sort of Aaron Glenn-like because of his size. To see Aaron squeeze every bit of vitamin C out of that orange, he deserves a head coaching job. He knows this organization. He knows a lot of the players on this team. He has seen a rebuild in Detroit. Now, you think the Saints had a rebuild? Look at the Lions.
But would Aaron Glenn want to come here, though, Mike? I mean, Aaron Glenn, I think, is going to have multiple opportunities. And I get that he has contact with this, he has a base here. He's coached here. He worked for Sean Payton. He worked for Dennis Allen. I mean, do you think that he's going to want to come here? Is this going to be his first choice? Because he's going to have other choices, I think.
Okay. And maybe because I do things nationally and everybody here is sort of got the blinders on. Saints.
Mm-hmm.
We not a good organization, everything else. Hey, do sports talk radio in New York. You think that's run with the Jets?
No, God, no.
Hey, it's a Woody Johnson beat over the head. He don't know what he's doing. And Woody's, man, I don't know what he's interviewed, like 9 guys for the general manager spot. He's got a list of 12 to 13 potential head coaches because he doesn't know where to go with this. Las Vegas, I think the best thing there, since 2020, when they hired their next head coach, it'll be the 5th head coach since 2020. 5 since 2020. The best thing Mark Davis did was bring in Tom Brady, because Tom is going to get in his ear and say, that's who we should get. And player-wise, at quarterback, the most important position, he's going to get in his ear about that. Man, these organizations aren't well run. They know better than what you're seeing here at this point.
Well, one thing I think, Mike, that Aaron would do better than anyone else, or at least on this list, is I think Aaron would, hold players accountable better than anyone has since Sean Payton left. And B, whoever the next head coach is, the one thing that is an advantage, I said this the other day, and one thing that's an advantage to coming to New Orleans is you will have a larger say on things that go on within the organization.
I agree.
Than other coaches will elsewhere. You talk about the Jets and people stepping in and whatever. Because, first of all, Mickey's the kind of GM, he wants that. He wants a coach to have his voice heard. And so that is an advantage to have. And I do think of the 5 names on this list, I want someone that's young, but Joe Brady's 35 years old. Kellen Moore's 36 years old. Matt Nagy's a has-been, in my opinion. I don't want anything to do with Mike Kafka. So of the names of this list, I think Aaron Glenn does fit that role better than anyone else.
I agree with you. And for me, that's a big fall off after Aaron Glenn. A huge fall off when you look at the potential names. Now, this organization, you think about in 2006, was Sean Payton really highly kind of went after? He was not the top.
No, he wasn't.
He was not. And he was not Tom Benson's guy. Tom Benson wanted Mike Sherman, who had been with Green Bay. And it was Loomis. And Mickey pushed it, I think.
And Bill Parcells pushed it a little too.
And I think he's the guy. Now, Sean, he had told me this story. He almost went to the Raiders. He said, man, you're not in control there, because it was the old man then. It was
right. That's right.
Things. And so you kind of quasi head coach, and you got no say on personnel.
Which is why he was never going to Dallas, by the way. He was never going to go to Dallas because of that.
Yeah, and everybody, he's going to the Cowboys. What? Yeah. Man, Sean ain't taking no orders.
He was never going there. No.
Okay, that's one thing to be drinking buddies with a guy and there's another thing to work for him.
Exactly.
Sean knew he wasn't, but he could use it. His agent could always have that little caveat. Man, listen, if you don't come forward, he might go to Dallas. And you don't know some of the maneuvers that are done behind the scenes. I hear it every day from agents. And I don't want to say they talk bad about players, but they let you know who's their client. And they let you know who's not their client. Okay? And so you got to understand, and some of the guys nationally, they fall for a lot of that. And you know what it is? It's sort of clickbait. It's sort of headline news, that sort of thing. And I get it, because you're getting pressure from the bosses to put that out. You're getting pressure to come up with a story. But I think for me, it's pretty easy that Aaron Glenn would be on top of the list. Now, Mike Rabel, I think, is more the guy. He will have choices that are better. Because if you go to New England, you got a lot of cap space and you got a young quarterback. Well,
and that's also a similar situation to where New England, and this is why I'm 98% certain Mike Vrabel's going there.
Yeah.
Because and it's a similar situation to where Mike Vrabel will also be one that has a whole lot of say-so on what happens in that organization, just as much as one will in New Orleans.
Yeah, and, I still do a lot of stuff for the Tennessee Titans radio network. Mike had really no say. Other than the 53-man roster, he had no say. Trades, free agent signees, he wasn't involved. That was John Robinson, Oran Coleman. And, Amy Adams' sister, who runs the team now, Bud Adams' daughter, her deal is, I'm building a new stadium. Man, I don't want a lousy team. So it happened in 2 years. She's fired 2 general managers and a head coach. If I'm Brian Callahan, man, I'm renting. I'm not buying nothing in Nashville. I'm renting because I know I'm next. I'm going to feel the blade real quick. And they don't have the quarterback. Now, they have an opportunity now with the top overall pick. And we had the Bayou Hall of Fame announcement yesterday. I got to talk to Ed Ogeron. Ed was there, and his son, who also coaches the quarterbacks at Miami. He was like, man, it's going to be hard for them to pass Cam Ward. And, he's like, this nothing against Shadir Sanders, but Cam's going to be.
Oh, Cam Ward's going to be a much better quarterback. He's the only one I even give a chance in this class to be a real NFL quarterback.
The only thing with Cam and watching him on tape, and Ed laughed, he said, Mike, I never saw him. And then you talked to me about him because you saw him at Incarnate Word and at Washington State. Every time he throws a ball, he's never got his feet set.
Yeah.
Everything is almost like falling back or armed. He's just throwing it with his arm. Now, that's not how they teach you, okay? If he's going to have to go somewhere where you're going to have a quarterback coach to really work on his mechanics.
Yeah.
Because if he misses on a throw, it's high.
Yeah.
And, man, a high ball in the NFL, you know what happens? Nothing good.
Mike, I had a problem with him towards that. Also, and towards the end of the season, I didn't necessarily like the way he played when the Hurricanes got behind. His attitude. I'm not putting it all on him, but I thought his attitude kind of changed multiple times when I saw it. And maybe I'm reading it wrong or whatever, and they still scored points. Don't get me wrong. Miami still scored a bunch of points, but there were just some times when I looked at him and I'm like, I just don't know if any quarterback coming out of this draft is going to be worth a whole lot.
Well, they're not going to be the instant kind of hit.
Well, that's for sure.
Like what Jaden was, what Stroud was. And we saw, even Sean's went through it with Bo Nix. There's been kind of a up and down and up and down. Man, with Denver, they beat the hell out of the Saints. But Bo Nix in that game, he had 5 passes he missed. The guys were high school open.
Right.
And he missed. It wasn't no college miss. It was a high school miss. He was wide open. We saw it with Spencer Rattler in the first half, as good as he played. And Spencer, I thought, really played well. It was his best performance as a Saint in the first half. When Tom Brady made the comment, man, that's
F. Bro, his quote was, You've always asked me, do I give any quarterback an F rating? Goes, I give that pass an F rating.
And Tom is always about, because he trained here in New Orleans for a lot of people don't realize it, early in his career in Metairie with Tom Shaw. Tom was the speed conditioning guy. Brady was here a lot. And Tom kind of shielded the media away from a lot of it, but I knew Tom pretty well. And so you got to see Brady, and he was always very kind of upfront about you. I'm willing to take a physical mistake because that don't happen.
Right.
What not going to take, you making a mental mistake. And he always was big on that with quarterbacks. You can't make many mental mistakes. The physical ones you can make. The mental ones you can't.
Well, and the biggest problem I had, and I don't want to go off on a Spencer Rattler tangent because we spent so much time on this show. Though everybody knows what I think about Spencer Rattler, but I think his biggest problem is, Mike, and the reason why he played so well in the first half of that game, and he did. I thought Clint Kubiak designed a game plan just for him. He was going to first read. It was dinks and dunks. There weren't a whole lot of long passes, but he was going to his first read in Tampa Bay at halftime, to their credit. And I think Bowles did a great job adjusting at halftime to shutting that first read down. And when they did, I saw a lot more pressure on Spencer because I thought that he was less, he doesn't want to take a risk. I get it. He doesn't want to throw the pick, and he really hasn't thrown that many of them. He made a couple big mistakes, but he's also willing to take a sack a lot instead of trying to use his feet, which I don't think he used enough.
Yeah, that's never been a huge part of his game. If you go back,
but it can be.
It can be, but you go back to kind of habit. When
that's true.
Oklahoma, he used his feet to buy time. When you go back to South Carolina, he had to run for his life because that's South Carolina.
He did.
That last year was terrible.
Yeah,
absolutely terrible. But I think that's not something that's in the back of his head. With Jaden, what?
Hey, don't even mention those two in the same sentence.
And that receiver's not open, man, I'm gonna make you pay for it.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, we met up in the summer, and I told him, I said, listen, Jaden, I can't give you any advice other than this. Man, at the NFL level, you better hit the deck hard and get out of the way of hits or run out of bounds. Because, man, they're going to try to take your head off. He just laughed. He's like, oh, coach, don't worry about it. I got it. But that's Jaden. It was like,
right.
Hey, I got all this. And don't worry about it.
You know what? He's got it.
He got it. And
I mean,
his body sort of bends almost like Gumby.
It does.
Because you saw him take that hit and his knee got pulled back. And he got up and sort of just dusted himself off and went back in. And he is such a cool guy.
He really is.
Most immense pressure. And so this goes back to the Florida game. LSU plays Florida. And I've always told him this is the greatest performance I've ever seen in Tiger Stadium by an LSU Tiger football player. What he did against Florida. And so Pete Jenkins is coaching the defensive line. So he was like, man, come with me on the sideline. We watched the game. And, and I'm standing up watching. And Pete's most of the time sitting on the bench. And so Jaden takes off with this 70-yard run and scores. And Pete, for him, because he's 82 years old at this time, he jumps off the bench and he runs onto the field and he grabs Jaden and he hugs him. And I can see he's talking to him. And Jaden comes sit down and he pulls his helmet off and he got a big smile on his face and everything. And so, man, everybody's around him. Then all of a sudden it clears. And I just put my hand on him and I said, hey, what did Pete tell you? He said, Jaden, I love you. And I think you may be putting on the greatest performance I've ever seen in my life, but you scored too damn fast. I got to put my defense on the field. And Jaden was, coach, don't worry about it. If they score, I'm going to score again. And he was like, Mike, that's exactly what he told me. But he said, he said it in the manner of, hey, don't worry about it. He said, I was worried, but he wasn't.
But, Mike, that's proof of what a quarterback is, as much as it is ability. It's that Jaden gets it. And, he was a little bit older. He's a little bit older rookie than some of the other ones. But Jaden Daniels gets it. And I think when you're looking for the future in the long term, and you want a quarterback that's going to be able to lead this franchise for 10 or 12 or however many years, it needs to be someone who gets it. And, Derek Carr, we all know, is a bridge. Derek Carr is going to be here one more year, and that's going to be an end of it. You got to have a quarterback that understands it and gets it now.
And people are not going to like to hear this, but I think Derek Carr is going to be a quarterback in 2025.
Oh, there's almost no question. They have to.
The money situation. Now, you may have a coach come in and say, listen, let's bite the bullet now. But what are your options?
Yeah, you don't have any.
You don't really.
Your options are Derek Carr or 2-15. Those are your two options. There's just no. Right before you came on, I don't know if you heard what I was saying, but where the Saints are right now, they don't have any. They'd have to go get a quarterback for $7 or $8 million, even if that, as a free agent, or they got to go with Spencer Rattler, or they have to draft someone, and there's no one worth drafting right now. Don't waste your draft capital on a quarterback. So that's where the Saints are, which leads me to, I think there's a 90% chance that Derek Carr is the quarterback of this team next year.
I agree with you. And we had on Joel Curry, and I think Joe breaks down the salary cap as good as anybody that I've ever spoken to about it. And Joe started, I said, man, Joe, thanks so much. And I said, man, I hate to ask you this because it's like asking Dr. David Elias when I have him on from WWL. It's like, Mike, you always say, it's tough for me to come on, but you never give me something good to say. It's always about an injury. And I got to tell you the bad part about it. And Joe's like, Mike, you set me up here. There are no good options for the Saints.
There just aren't.
There just aren't good options without you saying that you're going to sacrifice now. You are going to have to sacrifice and play younger players, but that's on the decisions. I've always believed decisions you make in January through August determine what you do in the fall. That to me.
Well, that goes back to a coach, Mike. No coach is going to want to come here if that coach knows that he's going to have to go through one season of absolute torture and misery. I mean, so
that's where I disagree with you. You one of 32. You are in an elite class.
I know, Mike, but if Aaron Glenn,
everybody thinks they Dr. Phil. There ain't a coach out there that thinks that he can't turn a team around quickly. I'm just telling you, I've been around them way too long in my life.
Just don't know if there's anyone who thinks they can turn this around without a quarterback, and they don't have one if they don't use Derek Carr.
I think it's going to be Derek, and it's not ideal, but I think the mentality of any coach is I can make it work.
Yeah.
Do it. They're in here saying, man, this is a bad team and we're going to stay bad. Their deal is, no, I'm going to turn it around. That's a great mentality to have. Now, here's the thing. Mike Tyson said it best, right? Everybody got a plan until you get hit.
Then you get punched in the face.
And then so my thing is, what is your plan to rebuild this football team? And are you willing to sacrifice? And I'm talking about older players that have some name recognition, and you get rid of them, and you're going to go with a younger guy. So my thing about it is going to be also to the Ryan Ramczyk situation.
Yeah, someone was asking about that earlier. Go ahead, talk about that.
He's going to retire in the offseason. You look at him now, he looks like a tight end. And so that's really difficult spot because he still had football gas left in him in the tank, but his body broke down on him.
Right.
Okay, that's just bad football luck. That's nothing else involved.
Agreed.
And Ryan, when he was healthy, he was one of the top 2 right tackles in pro football. He
Definitely.
was good. But, you're not going to have him. But you saddled with the contract. You saddled with that contract. And you just got to eat it now.
Well, I do think, and I will say this, and looking at some of the contracts I went through yesterday and was spending time looking at some contracts, I think the cap gets a lot better after next year because a lot of contracts do run out after this coming year. And so you suck it up, you go through it. And, again, I get people. Look, I'm in Carr's corner. I'm one of the few that's in Carr's corner. I think he's way better than people give him credit for. However, I get it that most people don't want him, and he's going to move on. He's just a bridge to whoever the next quarterback is. But I think if you go through one more season, I think this team Not saying they can win anything big, but this division, let's face it, they don't have to be that great to win this division, Mike. They just don't. And so if you get a new coach coming here and bring in a new attitude and win with some of these players, and you begin to wean yourself off of these old players, you get the young players a lot of experience. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but I certainly don't put it out the question that they can get themselves back to that spot where they can go 9-8-ish or something along that line if they have a really good draft and get a couple of key free agents for whatever they can get for the little cap money that they have.
Yeah, you're not in the heavyweight championship range in the
right.
South. And this
but at least make it enjoyable.
This is why the Chicago Bears job, I want to see who takes that. And listen, you got a young quarterback. You got some really good young receivers.
Yep.
Tight end, that's very good. You running backs there. You have a few pieces on defense, but twice a year you got to play Packers, Vikings. Think about
that's
that.
Right.
Man, that's 6 games. Do I want to step in the ring with that?
Lions.
Every week. And those 3 teams ain't going anywhere.
No, they're going to go 0-6 against those teams.
And so do I take that job, or do I, maybe take a job that I think I can win quicker? But you know
go
what?
4-2 in the division.
You and I can talk about this forever. But you know what it comes down to? How much money are you going to pay me? Dead presidents on paper. It changes the world for a lot of people. And for coaches, they understand what that's about. It's about money. Will you be able to pay that coach what somebody else wasn't going to offer?
Well, I'm going to ask you. You want Aaron Glenn? I think you said Aaron Glenn is the right choice for the Saints going forward. Do you think that it will be? And I know it's tough because it's going to be 2-3 weeks at the minimum before we find out who it is. Do you think it's going to be Aaron Glenn?
I think that's who they want. But can you make all this? Can you make all of it work financially for Aaron? I think that they will give, as you say, they will give him some credence on personnel decisions and have a say. His biggest choice is going to be who runs my offense.
Exactly.
Aaron's not going to run the offense.
No.
He's a defensive guy. He's going to have to bring in somebody to run that offense.
And Ben Johnson's probably going to take the rest of the Lions offensive staff with him wherever he goes.
Yeah, and it's funny that
does Clint Kubiak get a shot?
The Lions bring in Teddy Bridgewater.
Yes.
And so we were talking about it on Sports Talk. I think the reason is they know that offensive staff's going to get cleaned out with Johnson. Teddy's going to be the quarterback.
Absolutely.
Detroit.
Yep.
So that's just part of it. You kind of thinking a little bit ahead. And I think Dan Campbell felt, I'm going to lose Ben Johnson. Let me bring in a guy who's a former player that knows the system, and I can build a little bridge with him as a coach with the Lions and have that relationship with the quarterback, receivers, tight ends, running backs.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was going to ask you. When I was talking about this, some people were asking me, and I thought it was a great point. If it was Aaron Glenn that came in here, would he think about making Teddy Bridgewater an offensive coordinator? Now, I know he's young, and he's only had 1 year of experience as a coach, and he really could still play quarterback. But I like the idea of getting somebody young, and I think Teddy Bridgewater is incredibly intelligent, and I think he's ready to go to bring in a Teddy Bridgewater as an OC and take a chance.
I don't know about the title offensive coordinator, but he might be quarterback coach, passing game coordinator. And, and he
a la Joe Brady.
And he basically calling the plays, but he doesn't have the title.
Right.
Hell with a title. You pay me that kind of money, I'll do it. Here's the thing with players, and I know how they feel about it.
He could even be the backup quarterback.
Well, that's stretching things. But here's the thing. If you've played, because they got guys that have been great coaches in this league that's never played in this league. But if you tell somebody to do something, man, what are you talking about? Teddy Bridgewater, Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell, you know what they can all say? I'm not asking you to do something I did that I wasn't
That's
asking.
right.
And I played. So don't throw that back at me. But that is the mentality of a lot of players today. I don't think that's the biggest part of the game that's changed. I don't know if like 60s, 70s, 80s, you questioned the coach if he played or not. I think today, that's more in play. I
agree.
What, you telling me to do this? You ain't never played.
Exactly. I agree. It's hard to get respect these days without that.
Yeah.
100%. All right. There's like one more thing I want to ask you after this, but the last question on the coaching front. If it's not Aaron Glenn, if it's not Mike Vrabel, I think those are the top two choices, and it's not going to be Mike Vrabel because he's going to New England. If it's not Aaron Glenn and if it's not Mike Vrabel, who do you think it is?
Then it may be Joe Brady.
It's tough.
I know that Joe is ready. I really don't.
It's only 35.
And the thing with Joe, and I got to know him when he was at LSU, and, he worked great with Steve Ensminger. Him and Steve had a really, really great relationship. Yep. And, a lot of times, Steve Ensminger would tell me there were parts in the game about, hey, Joe, you got a thought about something? And he said, it wasn't just one play. Hey, what you think about the next play? And he was really the passing game coordinator. He worked with Burrow and the receivers and with the tight ends. Man, I'd like to work with that group if I had Chase and Justin Jefferson and Terrace Marshall and Thaddeus Moss and, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You think about that year, how important he was to that football team, not only as a runner, but as a receiver. And Burrow would always make the comment about, man, you know why I trust Clyde? He picks up that blitz.
Yeah.
He said, listen, ain't much of him, but he said, man, that guy comes right up the middle and he'll wheelbarrow him. Boom. He said, the guy falls right in front of me. And he worked well with that. But when he went to the NFL, he had to get used of the NFL game and the hash marks being different.
Right.
It's a different game than college football. There are some elements today, much more than I've ever seen, of college football thrown into the NFL. I mean, there are a lot of it today, pieces of it. But it took him a little while to get used to calling the plays. He goes to Buffalo. Well, Josh Allen's there. There's not a lot Josh Allen can't do.
That's true.
One of the things Joe did, he made them a much better running team. Look at how they run the football now in comparison to when Ken Dorsey was there.
Multiple running backs too, including obviously Josh Allen running for himself.
Yeah, and so I think he brought that running game element to the Bills. That's why I think they have a legitimate chance.
Yeah.
Again, to beat a man, you got to beat the man.
Just
means the Chiefs.
No Matt Nagy, Mike. No Matt Nagy. I hope that's just a.
No, I hope that's not accurate.
I mean, come on, we can't do that. We cannot do Matt Nagy and Mike Kafka. I'm sorry, but why is he even a candidate? Why is he a candidate anywhere? Somebody has to explain that to me.
Jim, I think a lot of times too, not only your opinion on coaches, but general managers will use a kind of service that will give them names of guys I think at least you ought to talk to. That's why Anthony Weaver's getting an interview.
Yeah, and I've even brought him up, but
he was a former defensive line coach with the Ravens, and he was a coordinator last year with the
Dolphins. Defense got a lot better.
And so I think a lot of times what you don't hear is that, people in a service will say, hey, interview Anthony Weaver, or interview Kafka. I'm not telling you to hire him. I'm telling you to interview him.
Well, I also think, Mike, too, and I said this Monday, I think that the Saints and a lot of teams, the Jets doing this too. I think that the Saints are putting together a list. They're going to interview like 15 candidates. That way, if they don't get their choice 1, choice 2, choice 3, they can use lip service and say, hey, we got the guy we wanted. No matter who it is, we got the guy we wanted and make it sound good. You know what I mean? I really think that's part of it as well.
And I would say that when the Saints job came open in 06, okay?
Yeah.
Think about what Sean Payton accepted. Okay, this is right after Katrina.
Yep.
You didn't have a quarterback.
That's right.
You
He didn't know he didn't know he was getting Drew Brees.
You didn't know that. And I always told Sean, I thought what he did in 06 was the best coaching job with the Saints. Better than 09, better than 11, better than 2019. It was the best. He had 30.
I thought 2021 was pretty good too.
I thought that with that many new faces, and it was 30.
Yeah.
And you didn't know about Drew with the shoulder.
Right.
And Reggie Bush, he was a great player. He was never going to live up to the expectations.
No, because he wasn't going to be every down back.
Because of the fact that, man, what he did at USC, he was a tilt-the-field guy. He was a very good NFL player.
Yeah.
Never going to be that. But that first year.
Marcus Colston, he got a little lucky too.
Yeah, and him and Deuce together.
Yeah.
That's when Deuce was healthy. Man, that was a tremendous 1-2 punch. And then you get Colston, as a 7th round pick.
Exactly.
I mean,
and you look at the defense and the linebacking core they had, and never heard of Scott Shanley really before, talking all about all those guys and up front how strong they were. And just, I think it was like lightning in a bottle. I hope we see that again. I just don't know that's even possible to see that again.
I think Jim was Jeff Fain. I don't think he gets a lot of.
Yeah, no. You talk about centers all the time. That's the lifeblood of your offense.
And I knew this was from when Jeff came out of college. Buddy DiLiberto and I we'd sit with Mickey Loomis and we'd have lunch, and he would kind of go through, these are some of the guys we like that we're looking at. And the draft, you got no idea who you're gonna, who's gonna fall to you. He brought up Jeff Fain's name twice. And then I heard the rumors that the Browns were looking to deal him.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, I don't know why, but that's where they've been dysfunctional for so many years too. And look what he did here. He was a tremendous part of that early run with the Saints with Sean Payton. He brought stability. He was smart. He knew how to pick up everything, but he cashed it in to being the highest paid center in the NFL with the Buccaneers.
Yep. He sure did. You're right. All right, Mike, one more thing before we let you go, and I appreciate you spending so much time with us on this Wednesday morning here in Dattitude Podcast. It's going to be, and here's another, if you're looking for any little pieces of optimism, we don't want to be Derry Downer 100, all 3 days of the week for an hour and a half every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we're looking for some glimmers of hope. Whoever the next coach is going to come in and face a schedule that for the 3rd straight year gives you hope that you can at least win. You talk about the division games, but really the rest of the schedule isn't that tough. You play Buffalo, of course, that's tough. Miami may be better, but you look at the rest of the schedule, the Rams, the 49ers are going to be better, but you play the NFC West, which isn't the toughest division in the NFC. You play the NFC East, which other than the Bills isn't the toughest in the NFC. And then by losing Sunday and the Panthers winning, you get the Giants and the Bears instead of the Cowboys and the Packers. What a deal. So I think next year, if you're looking for any glimmer of hope, besides the fact there'll be a new coach, you can look at this as well. Yeah,
and we talk about that every year. I mean, it ain't the toughest schedule in the world when you're playing. And I think last year, I think they had the 31st hardest schedule. I think the Falcons were 32. It didn't help them either.
That's true.
So, again, this is about getting better players.
Yep.
Better players make you a lot smarter as a coach. And that is mainly going to have to happen through the NFL draft.
Yep.
And you're going to have to hit on these early picks and not have a Peyton Turner, but have a Taliase Fuaga come in. Man, we don't really talk about it. Look at this guy. He never
did a great job.
Left tackle before in his life. And he comes in here, and you could tell he had a little bit of swagger with it. Man, okay, I get it. It's a tougher game. But, man, I got this. And you see, man, he plays to the whistle and sometimes a little beyond.
Yeah.
You got something there. Man,
I agree.
a guy that can play with Taliase Fuaga. There is no question. And I thought he didn't play well early, but Kool-Aid McKinstry late. I thought he played much better later in the year.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with that one.
I think with Kool-Aid, I think you got something there too.
I don't disagree, but I was a little disappointed. And I do agree that he played better towards the end of the year, but that's mostly because he played a whole lot more. At the end of the year, he was a regular.
Yes.
And he wasn't so much in the beginning, but he definitely improved. But they need to hit. You talk about the draft. They need to hit on the guys that they've already drafted this past year and this coming draft. I think you need to find 3 starters in this coming draft and at least two other guys who can be regular fill-ins. And if you can do that, I mean, I think that'd be a huge plus as you go into, again, a transition year to where the cap thing gets better in 2026.
Jim, they don't like to say it, is the filthiest word in the athletic sports vocabulary. Rebuild.
Yep.
No one wants to say it.
Yeah.
They use, we tweaking the roster, we shuffling personnel.
Yeah.
They never use rebuild. My thing is, why not? That's exactly what.
Don't be ashamed of it.
And here's my thing. If you talk to the fans and media and you're open about, we understand this is not going to be a quick fix.
Right.
People would understand that. You know what gets you in trouble? You're lying.
Yep.
You lied to somebody, because now you got to remember the lie that you told early on, and it comes back to get you.
I think we've been lied to for a few years now, Mike.
Huh?
I think we've been lied to for a few years now.
Yeah. Oh, no, there's no question. But that term of rebuild, you can't say that's not what's going to happen this offseason. It's got to be. It's got to start this offseason.
Mike, I agree with you. And you and I think see things the same way. I mean, obviously, you are the icon when it comes to New Orleans sports media. To me, you and Jeff Duncan are the two guys who have their ear closest to this team and understand things a little bit closer. Now, Jeff's a little bit. My friend Dunk's a little bit more optimistic usually than I think than most of us are. But I love having you on the show. You tell it like it is, and that's what we love here on Dattitude. And I hope we can talk again soon.
Anytime. And man, we love to have you on when you can come on WWL. One thing I know with you, Jim, you can talk, man. And
I can talk.
I can give an opinion and talk. Because people say, "What's the hardest thing in sports talk?" Sometimes you get guests and you think they're really good, and they give you this one sentence answer, and Charlie sees it behind the scenes, and I'll hit my hands. What? Come on.
But Mike, when I come on with you and Bobby, I don't need to talk because Bobby talks for everybody, so it don't matter.
Peyton had the best line about Bobby, and he's like, "Mike, I don't know what they pay you, but they should pay you a hell of a lot more." But he said, Hebert's the only guy that can ask a question, answer the question.
That's right.
And then debate himself before I get a chance to answer.
That's right. It's awesome.
I would mess with him constantly, but he told me, "Man, I've never been around a guy that can ask it, answer it, and then debate himself about it."
Well, and that's why whenever I'm on a show and Bobby starts a question with, "Don't you think I know I can just sit there and take a couple sips of my drink and rest back because it's going to be at least 3 minutes before I can say anything."
Yeah, well, that's why we love him, man. He's super with it, and we both grew up in similar places on the bayou here, and so I know he's optimistic. He's a lot more optimistic than I am, because he always said, "Man, you a damn Debbie Downer all the time." I said, "No," because he says, "I look at the glass half full, not half empty." I say, "Okay, you got your half full, and I got mine half empty. So it's the full glass, right? We good."
Well, you helped me get Bobby on this show, so I can just sit here and I can fill a full hour and a half, and I only have to ask like 2 questions. Mike, you get Bobby on the show, and I'll just take a break that day. I'll just be on here in name only.
The 2 questions may be stretching it.
1.5. I'll try to butt in. Mike, Happy New Year to you, and anytime you need me on WWL, I'm just a phone call away. Thank you so much, Mike.
Jim, I appreciate it. Always great to be on with you.
Talk to you soon. The great Mike Detillier, everyone. Again, I'll tell you what, there's no one that knows New Orleans football and really the whole NFL more than Mike Detillier. And the first time I ever called him to come on this show, probably been 3 years now. Been at least 3 years probably. And I've been in this world for a while, but I really had never had any contact with Mike at all. And so he didn't know me from Adam. I mean, he might have known my name or whatever, but I don't even think we'd even met. And so I just reached out to him on Twitter and like, he's not going to answer. He answered right away. Oh yeah, I'll come on. And I got to say, every time after that I'm asked him, unless he has an appointment or something going on, which isn't, it's majority of the time it's an instant yes. What time you want me? I'm on. There have been a couple of times when we've had to tape it or whatever, but he is the great Mike. I mean that wholeheartedly. He is the great Mike Detillier. That was great. Says Scally, thank you. I mean, he is a legend. There's a UBN says we need him once a month. Can't believe. Yeah, you got to follow that tomorrow. That is what's going to happen tomorrow. We'll have a pick'em show. Gabe and UBN are going to be on with their picks. But yeah. Mike, Brian Cavett says Mike is awesome leading up to the draft to have him once or twice a month. Now, look, I'm not going to aggravate him. So he would probably do it as much as I asked him to, but I don't want to ask him more than like once every 6 weeks or so. Because I do want him to be able to come on and talk about all the things. I love to have him on because I know when he comes on, it's going to be an hour and a half full of great talk. I had some quotes in the queue. I didn't read them all while we're on. And there are some more things that I want to say here before we go off the air. You know what? Hold on. Before we do that, there are at least 3 comments in the queue. There are probably more than that I want to read. You're more than welcome. We've got about 10 or 15 more minutes left in the show if you want to put in your comments. But first, we told you earlier, we will let you know more about how Evangeline Securities can help you figure out what your family-run or privately held business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it, you ask? Well, after their complimentary valuation of your company, if you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process from among established private equity funds from around the world. Then they will maximize the return process for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform. There are very few companies like them in this area, none with their dedication and success. Short drive, Poydras Street. If you live in Baton Rouge or Lafayette or Lake Charles, also got an office in Lafayette. They're fully licensed and ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what is really important. You know what that is. It's the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. There was one in particular that really got me. Billy Wright, I don't know if you're still with us or not. You know, I'd be a hit him and quit him kind of guy. I don't know. Never be another winner with Loomis in charge. Jim Derry loves Loomis. When did I say I loved Loomis? Here's the difference between saying what I want or like or love. First of all, I'm not saying that I want Mickey Loomis to stay here or whether I don't want him to stay here because I'm quite frankly on the fence when it comes to Mickey Loomis. I do know this. What Mike Detillier said and what I've been saying for months is Mickey Loomis is going to leave when he wants to leave. And honestly, part of me thinks that he's earned that right. So it's not because I quote unquote love Loomis. If I say something that you don't like, here they come with the moronic comments again. Jim Derry loves Mickey Loomis. No, I think Mickey Loomis has been here for 22 years. He did something that no one ever thought. If you take yourself back to 22 years ago with this franchise, Mickey Loomis did something, helped do something that no one ever thought could be done here. Let's win a Super Bowl. He made this team. There were at least 3 other seasons where the Saints maybe were the best team in the league and it didn't go right in the playoffs, and that happens and whatever. Would we love to go back to those days? Absolutely. So again, I'm on the fence when it comes to Mickey Loomis. I understand the fans. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm not going to tell you you're out of line if you say that Mickey Loomis should go, because I completely get it and why you are where you are. But at the same time, this isn't all where we are right now. Isn't all Mickey Loomis's fault? People want to blame Miss Gale. She needs to sell the team. This was all set up by Tom Benson. But this is what Tom Benson wanted. Nobody's blaming the late great Tom Benson. We're going to talk about this plenty more. I thought, I was talking to Zach Ewing about when Mickey Loomis would have his season end press conference, which normally happens in a few days after the season's over. We don't know when it's going to be. He hasn't said when it's going to be. There may be something going on back there that we don't know about. It's not a fait accompli that he's going to be the general manager of this football team, whether it's in name only or not at all. So all you people jumping the gun saying Mickey Loomis can't make the decision, blah, blah, blah. He might not be making the decision. He might be planning an exit strategy right now. You don't know that. Cannon says Loomis said he is not going to I'm sure you meant not and not bot. Loomis said he's not going to rebuild. People say stuff all the time. And it goes back to what Mike just said. Why did he not say that? They don't want to use that word. It's as simple as that. They just don't want to use the word rebuild. It doesn't mean they're not rebuilding. It doesn't mean they don't know they're not rebuilding. William wants to know what my thoughts are on Kellen Moore. Predict the Saints hire Moore and the Jets hire Glenn. Look, I'm going to go back to this. This slide is better for what we're talking about. I agree with Mike that Aaron Glenn is the guy they want. He's not first on my list, and I've made this clear. And all the things I said, I'm not strongly against him. I know Gabe, he's number one on Gabe's list as far as potential coaches. But he doesn't fit into what I've been talking about, okay? My, not a quote unquote requirements. I'm nobody. I can't have requirements. But here are my guidelines per se on what I would say in what direction the Saints need to go. And up there, well, number one is they need to be younger than 50, which Aaron Glenn fits. Let's see. How old is Aaron Glenn? As I do this on live TV. Aaron Glenn is 52, so he's not younger than 50. But I actually, that doesn't bother me with him because I thought he was in his low to mid 40s. He seems like a young dude. So I'm okay with him being 52, but that doesn't bother me at all with him. What does bother me, and number two rule is no retreads. He's not a retread. He hasn't been a head coach. But number three, this is a rule that I really wish this team would follow. No one who has coached or played here. I really wish the Saints would follow that. I think they need to just distance themselves from anything that's been here in the past, especially the recent past. And again, I understand Aaron Glenn wasn't here that long, but he still comes from the Sean Payton tree. I'm just so done with the Sean Payton tree. Elijah Gray says, wouldn't mind the offensive coordinator from Tampa, Liam Cohen. I'm not, again, do due diligence. If you want to talk to him, great. And if he impresses you, great. But Liam Cohen was just coaching at the University of Kentucky last year. And then was offensive coordinator at Tampa. Had one really good year. Don't get me wrong, it's really good. I don't know. It's tough, man. No matter who you get, it's going to be tough for whoever comes in here. So you can't, it's hard to go through and fill up a checklist of a coach that you got, okay, I got these 5 to 8 guidelines here, and he doesn't click one of them. Am I going to be upset if Aaron Glenn is the hire for the Saints? No. Because all the things I said with Mike, I believe. I think that Aaron Glenn is probably among the candidates that are on this list, at least this list of 5. There are more candidates than this. But of these 5 guys, I do think that Aaron Glenn is probably the most ready to be a head coach and is most ready to accept the reins of the Saints. That is more than just a coach, because when you're a coach of the Saints, you're also coach / half GM. Okay? So that's what people don't understand. And that's why Dennis Allen, to me, in hindsight, to me, couldn't really be the coach of this team per se. I don't think Dennis Allen has it in him And I don't think they gave him as much responsibility. They wouldn't let him do the things that Sean Payton did. Whoever comes in here next, I do think is going to have that kind of thing. Brian says, Glenn did both. He was here for 5 or 6 years total, not totally against him. Again, I hate to be against someone just because they weren't here. If that's the right person to hire, it's the right person to hire. I'm not saying he isn't the right person to hire. I will tell you that Matt Nagy is the wrong person to hire. Mike Kafka is the wrong person to hire. I saw Matt Nagy enough to know he's not a head coach. I don't want anything to do with Matt Nagy. He's fine as an offensive coordinator in Kansas City, where Andy Reid says we're doing this, and Patrick Mahomes says, and we're doing this, and then Matt Nagy says something. I'm okay with that. He could stay in that position. Mike Kafka, what did he do to help Daniel Jones? Now, of course, he's got a big excuse because they lost Saquon Barkley. God, no. I don't know. Anyway. There were a couple other comments about where the Saints draft and blah, 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 blah. Saints, Scottaboo's not coming here. And Ashton Genty, some people, man. Go back and watch my short from Tuesday and some people, look, I just think this team's got to draft offensive line. I've said this before. If Ashton Genty lasts until 9, then you have a serious decision to make. We'll get there then. But other than that, it is what it is. Before we go off this morning, again, here's your last chance to get a comment in. Gabe says he'll last till 9. I think he will too. They'll have a decision to make. Running backs don't get drafted early. This is a different running back class. They haven't in the recent past. Things are starting to change again. All those by the way, the cheap contracts that running backs have been getting, not enough money. Apathy asks, what happens if Will Campbell is there at 9? Look, I got to be honest. Maybe. And I think they need left tackle. That's what, I mean, to me, I'd love to see him be left tackle and move Fuaga back to his native right tackle. I would love to see that. I got to be honest, though. Will Campbell did not have a great season this year. I don't know if he's the answer. Maybe. As far as coaching odds and what is going to go on the coaching wise, we have a ton of great stuff on NOLA.com/Saints. You might want to check it out. I spent a lot of my morning this morning in preparing for the show, just reading our own stuff. Matt Paris said that he thought that Rizzi said, and by the way, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Darren Rizzi is where are the Jets going? No offense to Darren Rizzi. I mean, I truly mean no offense when I say what I'm about to say to Darren Rizzi. But why are the Jets asking to interview Darren Rizzi? I mean, are they trying to make their interview list like 28 people long? Why? Are they doing the same thing that the Saints going to do? So if they don't get number 1, number 2, number 3 on their list, they can say, we got the number 1 person on our list. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Darren Rizzi is not ready to be a head coach in this league. Of course, the Jets do a lot of things that don't make sense. The NFL, again, these are all the things that I'm about to say are according to stories that I've read on our own website this morning. The NFL intentionally makes the hiring process drawn out. They do that for multiple reasons. And don't think that they're trying to fill up weeks besides just talking about playoff games. Playoffs. Yeah, playoffs. They want to talk about coaching searches too. People are interested, man. They're scooping this stuff up. They're jumping on NFL.com like crazy. All the team sites eating it up like crazy. So all 32 teams is still relevant. That's part of the reason why they drag it out. Obviously, the Rooney Rule, and they're trying to diversify the NFL are still trying. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But they cannot meet with coaches in person until after the divisional round on January the 19th, Matt Paris says. So in other words, if you want to talk to Aaron Glenn, you want to talk to Joe Brady, you want to talk to Kellen Moore. If the Eagles don't get knocked out, they can't talk to Kellen Moore. The Buffalo Bills don't get knocked out on Sunday, they can't talk to Joe Brady, and Aaron Glenn's got to bye. So they can talk to him virtually for up to 3 hours. They can't talk to any of those guys in person until after the divisional round, January 19th. Oh, that also includes Matt Nagy. And Matt also says, even when it was widely known they would hire Dennis Allen in 2022, and I didn't remember this part, they only interviewed 5 other candidates. It still took 2 weeks. So this is not going to be a quick process. And yet, also, nothing's going to happen until after we hear from Mickey Loomis publicly. Because I'm telling you right now, there's a possibility. There's a possibility that he is planning his exit strategy. I know a lot of people of you would love that. We'll see. Is that what he's doing? Or is he just went on a vacation? I don't know what he's doing. And I can tell you, normally he's talking by now. He would normally talk like today or tomorrow. I think it's weird that he doesn't have anything scheduled. If he were going to talk even Friday, I think there would be something scheduled by now. I could be wrong. David Bordelon says the Saints need the dominant run stuffer in the middle. The D-line is a must. They need that, but don't draft that in the first round. That's not your number one need. Do not draft interior defensive lineman in the first round. Absolutely not. I mean, if you draft a really good pass rusher, I'm going to probably shake my head and roll my eyes, but I won't be pissed like when they draft Isaiah Foskey a couple of years. The second round, you drafted Brian Bresee. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say this. Those of you who watch the show on a regular basis get tired of hearing me say it. But you draft Brian Bresee in the first round. Okay, you needed an offensive lineman in the first round, but okay. And he's turned out to be good. But you can go back and find the show. It's on here somewhere. You're watching on YouTube. You can find it, the live draft show that we had in 2023. When they drafted Isaiah Foskey in the second round, I went off. And I'm still pissed about it. Douglas Thornton would be super happy if Mickey Loomis said goodbye. And yes, much respect for those glory years. Yeah, you got to give him respect for the glory years. Charles thinks it's 50-50. Loomis steps down. Apathy says he will dance with an apple Hubig's pie in one hand and a slice of king cake in the other if Mickey Loomis exit. See, my problem with that is I'm a week in, January 8th. I have still stuck to the New Year's resolution. I'm going to, and if you don't know what it is, by the end of the year, I have to have lost at least an average of a pound a week for 52 weeks. Yes, even with my Shaw math, I don't need a calculator to tell you that is 52 pounds. See how fast I did that? So I don't want to hold the apple Hubig's pie in one hand and a slice of king cake in the other, because whether he exits or not, I guarantee you I'm going to eat him. It's a cheat day. I can't have a cheat day. I just started. I refuse to have a cheat day until, let's see. My anniversary is on, my wife and I will celebrate our 19th wedding anniversary on February 1st. I don't think I'm going to have a cheat day before that. Maybe one. I'm planning to go out with one of my best friends is having a very belated birthday dinner a week from this Saturday. And we're going to my favorite restaurant. I may have a semi-cheat day. I could still eat what I want and fairly and eat right. So we'll see. Douglas says, I can do it. Zion seems to have done it. Speaking of Zion, we never mentioned the Pels, but they lost again last night. Who cares? At least Zion came back and had 2 incredible slams. Silver Gator says, Atkins is my ticket. I can't do without carbs, Silver. I have come to do what I haven't been doing a lot of, And the way that I lose weight on a regular basis is to eat more fruit and to eat more vegetables. So you can't eat fruit if you're cutting carbs. Charles says, if I lose 52 pounds, show you how. Well, I could tell you how. I don't know. Show you how. It's going to happen. Like, I'm 100% positive it's going to happen. That's how sure I am. I'm done with this. Okay. I'm about 35 pounds heavier than maybe 40 than when I started this show back in 2021. That's absurd. Okay. Normally what happens with me is I lose weight in the off season and then I put it all back on in football season because I don't have time. I'm so busy. I eat whatever. Well, the problem is this past off season, I didn't gain weight, but I didn't lose weight either. So I took my end of football season weight from the end of the 2023 season, carried it through, and then gained weight again like I usually do during football season. That is a problem. Can't do that. David Bordelon says, Foskey is a bust. I mean, but we knew he was a bust when they drafted him. I mean, it's not a surprise. Charles says Zion did look good. He scored 22 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. They're still 7 and 30 or whatever the hell they are. Michelle, I like saying this full name. Become a regular. I got to say the full name. I love it. It might be my favorite name that we have on this show. Michelle Castro Arreglado Neesmith. Ed Bickham yoga, hot yoga for 90 minutes. I will lose the weight. I don't know if I can do yoga for 90 minutes. I do exercise. I like to walk, actually. I'm a walker, especially this time of year when it's cold or cool. Love it. Charles says he retired from the Army in 06, was 195, now he's 225. I haven't been 225. I'm trying to think the last time I was 225. It's taken a while. I mean, I'm a big dude. I'm 6'2". So, I mean, 225 is probably, I don't even really want to go that low. That's too low for me. 225, last time I was 225 was probably when I was running like 25 miles a week back in 2000. That's up. Maybe 20. No, I was running maybe a little later than that. Maybe 2002. Somewhere in that range. 2000 to 2002 is the last time I weighed 225. My recent past, the lowest I've gotten is in the last 15 years. The lowest I've gotten is about 260. And actually, I know that sounds like a lot, but for me, 260, I'm in pretty decent shape if I can get down to 260. Kind of where I'm at. Not to tell you where I'm at now, but I just did, I guess. Silver Gator lost 72 pounds on Atkins, lose the fruits. I can't. It's what I mean. A lot of times for lunch, I'm just eating a smoothie. Michelle Castro Arreglado Neesmith says, thanks for pronouncing her Filipino name correctly. You're welcome. I pride myself as a play-by-play guy on the side. Pride myself on pronouncing names correctly. All right. Time to wrap it up. The rest of the week, what does the show look like? I know I told you that we were going back to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but we are going to have a Thursday show this week. Tomorrow, we'll be on the air. Gabe Henderson, UBN, going to be with me. We are going to give our picks on all 8 playoff games this week, which begins tomorrow. And when we talk about playoff games, 2 of them are college football playoff games. Love saying that. There are 2 college football playoff games. Great. This new format is so much better. I don't care if you think there are too many teams or you haven't loved the games. This format is way better. And they can make it better. Because the NCAA is the most effed up organization on the planet. Bar none. But at least they figured out how to do this semi-right so far. So, Gabe, UBN, and I will be here. And we'll give you our 2 picks on the 2 college games and the 6 NFL first-round games. Now, we're going to do it a little bit kind of how UBN and I have been doing it. We each get 24 points, okay? 24 points. There are 8 games. Do the math. We have to use all 24 points. The minimum we can, quote-unquote, bet on one game is 1 point. The maximum is 5 points in between with everything else. But we have to put at least 1 point on every game. Got it? So that's how we're going to do tomorrow. It'll be a lot of fun. And of course, we will ask for we employ the peanut gallery here. You know that already. Part of the Dattitude podcast is you are a part of this show. Not just the regulars. Tell your friends, whoever wants to come on. As we go along, make your predictions with us. Tell me how stupid I am. Tell me Gabe is so much smarter than Jim Derry. It's all good. Whatever way you want to do it. But if you call me out, be prepared for what I had to say. That's all. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us on this Wednesday. I want to thank today's guest, of course, the great Mike Detillier and Gabe Henderson behind the scenes, helping me out with the comments as always. Didn't show his face today, but he will be here tomorrow. He even took a shower. I feel bad that I didn't get him on because he took a shower and never got a chance to get him on. You could do the scratch and sniff on the screen. He would have smelled like, I don't know, Irish Spring or something. Who knows? Maybe we'll try that tomorrow with him and UBN. A reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. By the way, if you're still watching and you're on YouTube, click the like button. I don't know why they say it helps. I'm not smart enough to know. I just know that they say that it does. So click like and subscribe if you haven't. If you're watching on Facebook, Michelle, go find us on YouTube and just click subscribe. That's all you got to do. You can still watch on Facebook if you want. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. And always find the replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. Find all of our stuff on bet.NOLA.com. And of course, I was referring to the Saints Insiders a little while ago, NOLA.com/Saints. Make sure you check them out as well. We will see you tomorrow. Everyone have a great, stay cozy by the fireplace. Put the jackets on. Whatever you got to do to stay warm, just do it. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.